Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty leagues, PPR leagues, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
What is going on, y'all? If y'all are here, this is the Patreon segment of the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. I appreciate y'all for being here and watching the show. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. If you're liking the content, let me know what's going on. If you guys are liking the content. If not, we already got a comment in here. DeAndre Hopkins or Mims? Considering Hopkins has been trash lately and Mims breaking out. This week, DeAndre Hopkins playing up against, let's look at it. We got DeAndre against who? I'm looking at tight ends right now. They're playing against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's not the most amazing secondary, and I really do believe in DeAndre Hopkins to keep doing good things. Just because they're gonna have that stack box, everybody's still worried about Derrick Henry. I know Derrick Henry has also been kind of trash lately, but I definitely still believe in Hopkins as a top talent in the league, and he's gotten multiple 10-plus target games at this point. I know in week 1 he had 13 targets, so I would still rock with DeAndre Hopkins over Mims. I do like Mims' upside. I just don't think he's shown enough, and he's probably still technically the wide receiver 3 in that offense. The guy that I want to rock with for the Broncos right now is going to be Courtland Sutton, just because I think he's right back in a good situation. Judy's going to be taking attention, and I think Courtland Sutton will ultimately be the person that eats in that offense. But thank you for the question. Today we're going to be talking about tight ends right now. Super excited to talk about some tight ends and their matchups and everything that's going to be going down in this week 4. So let's just get right into it. Talking about the guy who's currently ranked tight end 1 in the entire fantasy football realm right now is TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson been having days in week 2, week 3, even week 1 he put up a double-digit performance. Week 2, obviously, with the 2 touchdowns, 25 fantasy points, very good for TJ Hawkinson owners like myself. And then we even saw some more bright spots with the 11 targets against the Chargers. Obviously, Chargers, you want to be targeting the Chargers defense. If you have a player going up against the Chargers defense, it's a great spot to be in. And I think another defense that I would be targeting when looking at pass catchers is going to be Carolina too. We just saw, DK Metcalf, Chris Olave. I was talking about this in the live show. They were both eating up against Carolina. Carolina with pretty bad defensive backs, decent linebackers, with guys like Brian Burns and stuff. But I don't think that Hawkinson's going to have too much trouble. I also don't think Brian Burns is ever going to be guarding him one-on-one. Probably a better athlete, Hawkinson, than the other linebackers that he'll be going up against. So I do like the matchup for him in week 4. Feel like it just makes sense. Everybody's going to have their eyes on Justin Jefferson. TJ Hawkinson going to be the beneficiary of a lot of targets, probably 10-plus in that game. So love him in that spot. Next guy I want to speak on real quick is going to be George Kittle. George Kittle, man, such a weird guy to play in a DFS, weekly fantasy, whatever, even in your regular fantasy league, just because he literally will turn into an offensive lineman very often. Brock Purdy finds ways to lean on him in those big moments, especially third downs, because it seems like George Kittle's strongest guy on the field at all times. Definitely probably the hardest working guy on the field at all times, and always making an impact in the game, but not always making an impact in the receiving game. So that's kind of the scare with him. But going up against Arizona obviously a rebuilding franchise, gonna have to look past how in the world they beat the Dallas Cowboys in that matchup. That was absolutely insane. They kind of handily beat them too. It wasn't even really close. Josh Dobbs got it done. But I really don't see the 49ers as fraudulent as much as I see the Cowboys as being fraudulent with the whole Dak Prescott situation. Just don't know if he's ever going to be like the solid quarterback that they need him to be. I think Brock Purdy has his marching orders ready to go and has all the weapons necessary to take care of this Arizona team very handily. And I think George Kittle will probably be in the game plan to make some plays here and there. I don't know if he's going to have the biggest game, but definitely like Kittle in the matchup just because he's so strong and so fast. They get him out in space. It's just we don't know if he's going to, be one of those top guys in the game plan. With Ayuk being back, it looks like Ayuk's going to be playing, and I know he has a good matchup. And then Deebo Samuel is also going to be probably the featured guy playing in that receiving game. And then still got to worry about Christian McCaffrey touching the ball. So a lot of touches that go before George Kittle, unfortunately. But don't hate the matchup. Probably can get him at a decent price in, DFS leagues on DraftKings, FanDuel, what have you. Then talk about a guy who everybody was really, really high on coming into the season. I was relatively high on him too. Thought that he could have a chance to finally have another breakout season after he's pretty much only had one. And I'm talking about Darren Waller. Darren Waller, currently the tight end number 9 in fantasy football, averaging 8.7 fantasy points. Guys, it's been beyond thin at tight end this year. So thin. Darren Waller has only put up 26 points total in the entire fantasy season, and he's still ranking as a top 10 tight end. So you really got to have your tight ends in order. Need to have a guy who's finding a way to get like 10 points a game at least if you want to stay competitive. Not have, when you're going up against Kelsey and Hawkinson, just get beat down in the tight end position. I don't know if Waller is going to be that for you against prime matchups. We see him match up. Week 1, he went up against Dallas Cowboys, only put up 3 receptions for 36 yards. Came back, played against Arizona, obviously bottom tier team, had a bit of a better performance, 13.6 fantasy points on 6 receptions for 76 yards. So definitely better against those bottom tier guys. And then I think that even showed improved more in week 3 against San Francisco. He's gone up against 2 of the best defenses in the entire league with Daniel Jones as quarterback, which is never going to be the best thing for you as a pass catcher. But going up against Seattle in this week 4 matchup, probably a good look for Waller. Seems like it makes sense. Seattle actually on PFF is ranked pretty low in their coverage grade. So, this guy is going to be the number 1 wide receiver for this offense probably for the whole season to come, just because their wide receiver room is so thin, so thin. I think they have listed as their wide receiver 1 is Isaiah Hodgins, and they have Paris Campbell there. A guy that I really like in their wide receiver room is Jalen Hyatt, but it seems like he's not even really getting the time of day yet. I'm sure that he will at some point just with his speed and his talent. But for right now, it's going to be Waller and I think that he has a pretty decent matchup against a bad coverage secondary that he'll be playing up against. Obviously, the only guy that is of note in that secondary for me is going to be Tariq Woolen, but he'll never see Darren Waller on the field at all. So definitely like it. Guy I want to touch on, Sam Laporta, pretty big day on Thursday Night Football. He was the tight end 2 coming into this week 4. He just continues to impress. He only grabbed 5 targets after getting 11 targets in that Atlanta game, but still ended up with 9.6 fantasy points, which is better than, 90% of the tight ends in the entire league. So I'm still going to call his 9.6 point performance a pretty good day on 4 receptions for 56 yards. Liked him. Other guy I wanted to speak on, obviously we got to talk about Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift's best friend relationship, whatever. Everybody's talking about that, but I more want to focus on how he's just like the best tight end in the game. I think he's the best tight end to probably ever play football at this point. Maybe you could argue Gronk as a talent, but just like straight up numbers wise, it seems like Kelce is the guy, and I really like his matchup. I want to pull up on PFL, see if there's any comments or anything, make sure I don't got to get to anybody. Want to pull up his tight end matchup, so let's do that real quick. See what Pro Football Focus has to say about it. And currently, they got Kelce as the number 2 advantage against or 4 tight ends. They have George Kittle being the number 1, so very interesting. And then Travis Kelce's going to be number 2 with his primary matchup being up against C.J. Mosley, who obviously is a solid linebacker, but getting older as time progresses, and I think Kelsey's just going to eat that up. Kelsey eats up anybody that is in front of him, so I don't even really think it matters who it is. And, he's not going to go up against Sauce Gardner. He's not going to see any of these elite guys that are going to, play on that Jets defense. Most of their elite guys are on the defensive line anyway, so Mahomes is going to deliver the ball. His favorite target is going to be Kelsey, and he's someone that I would absolutely love to play in DFS right now too. Finally, I wanted to talk about Mark Andrews real quick because I feel like he's maybe going to have a bit of a fall-off season. Looks like he's struggling with injury right now. What was his injury? I think it's not saying here. I know I can find it. Quadricep. He's got a quadricep injury, and I'm sure that doesn't feel good, but Week 2, scored a touchdown, 5 receptions for 45 yards on 8 targets. Week 3, didn't do as much, only 4 receptions for 35 yards, 7.5 fantasy points, going up against Cleveland, who have very strong safeties and pretty decent linebackers. I don't really love the matchup for Mark Andrews in Week 4, just talking about tight ends from a fantasy perspective. But let's take a quick break, and I'm going to give you all my defense and special teams talk after this, so make sure you stay with me. What's good, y'all? We are back talking about defenses and special teams that I like playing in this upcoming Week 4 that we are going to be experiencing. I'll see if I can get the... Oh. Boom. Defense and special teams talk. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it right now. And one of the defenses that I just absolutely love for very obvious reasons is going to be the Chiefs defense in primetime going up against the New York Jets. New York Jets have not shown us anything on offense at all. They got Zach Wilson back there. Their whole run game is messed up. We thought we were going to see good fantasy performances from guys like Dalvin Cook, guys like Breece Hall. Even Garrett Wilson is falling off right now, so hate to see it from the Jets fan perspective, but I think that's just even more reason for the Chiefs to just eat him up. Definitely think Zach Wilson's going to be throwing at least one pick in the game on Sunday Night Football. Chiefs defense has been pretty active too. Already has 8 sacks through 3 games, and then have gotten a fumble recovery in each of their 3 games too. Currently ranked at defense and special teams number 9, and I just think this is a really good spot for them to tear up Zach Wilson and this offense that can't find a way to get the running game going, can't find a way to get the passing game going. Probably cover that spread if you ask me as well, just because their defense is tightened up so much right now. Really like Trent McDuffie, who's their starting corner, who's going to be seeing Garrett Wilson the entire game. They got Chris Jones back. George Karlaftis was another first-round pick who was a dog. And just see them having a really big day, eating up against Zach Wilson. And, Zach Wilson has just been, like, trying to pull every single hat out of the book. I heard he got his team all ice cream one of these weekdays. And one of his teammates tweeted, like, hey, I didn't get no ice cream. Like, where's my ice cream? Thought it was very funny. So obviously he's not doing the greatest job of reaching his whole squad, and I think he's just going to get eaten up on Sunday Night Football in prime time. It's going to be a bad, embarrassing thing. I wish I could not start Garrett Wilson, but I don't really think if you have Garrett Wilson that you have a choice whether or not to start him. Just put him in your lineup, close your eyes, and pray to our Lord and Savior. Next defense that I want to speak on real quick. I actually just picked these guys up. I had... who did I have? I believe I was going with they should be on waivers here. I was going with like a bad defense, or maybe I was going with like the Steelers. I think I was going with the Steelers defense or something. They're going to be playing against Houston. Not that I think they're going to have a bad day, but I wanted to go with the Seahawks here. First off, because they're on Monday night and fantasy implications. Always feel like when I have like a guy at the very end, or a whole defense in that matter, that hopefully they can at least get me there. If I need some extra points, like to kind of have position in poker terms, if you know what I'm saying. To have a guy try to win you the game at last, and he doesn't have any guys on Monday, the guy that I'm playing. So kind of interesting. They're going up against the New York Giants. Obviously, I was just talking about Darren Waller, thinking that he has a pretty good matchup, but they have no Saquon Barkley right now, and that's going to play a huge factor. Daniel Jones, I don't really respect his decision-making as a quarterback. And, they got guys like Tariq Woolen back there who are ready to make a play at any given time. They have no wide receivers. The Giants, like I said, Isaiah Hodgins, Wan'Dale Robinson, Sterling Shepard is like their third-string guy, and he's the most proven guy on the team. Somehow he's sitting third string in the depth chart. I feel like they're just confused as a squad in general. ESPN currently has their power ranking on offense as the 31st in the entire NFL. So I just feel like this is a really good spot for the Seahawks defense. I think that their offense is going to be holding onto the ball for a good amount of the time anyway. And the Seahawks are probably going to get an easy victory against them with their defense showing out, hopefully. Next guys I want to talk about, we got the Saints going up against the Bake Sale. Usually, but Baker's been not that bad over the past couple of weeks. A couple wins. I think he started off 2-1 now, is what Baker's doing. Like somehow, some way. I actually have Baker rated as my worst quarterback in the NFL, but he might be starting to climb slowly. However, I just like the Saints defense and their secondary, probably the most talented secondary in the entire league, with Marshawn Lattimore, Marcus May, Tyrann Mathieu. They literally have a dog at every single position in their secondary. Also sporting Demario Davis, a very powerful linebacker, and then Cam Jordan, who's always going to be heating up the quarterback, putting pressure on. This is a team that they're going to get to see multiple times, and obviously they see them multiple times every year, just being a divisional matchup. Just think Baker is going to be a little bit too big for his britches in this spot. Saints defense is going to find a way to get to him. He's trying to make a lot of throws from the pocket. That's really not who he is. He's more of like a create a play type quarterback. And I just think that the Saints are going to find ways to get to him, sack him, probably pick him off. Just like the Saints defense in that spot for sure. Next guys I want to speak on real quick is going to be that Steelers defense going up against Houston. I think this one's a little iffy. Obviously, it's going to depend on if they can get to C.J. Stroud, if T.J. Watt can make plays in the backfield for these Steelers. But C.J. Stroud has been extra sharp throwing the ball. They got him throwing it like 45-plus times. He has a pretty good completion percentage, and he's like top 5 in passing yards in the entire league as a rookie. So very impressive. I'm a Texans fan, so I love to see it. But as far as our Texans rushing game, we have nothing. We have literally not been able to come up with any option to get the ball down the field, rushing the ball. Dameon Pierce has not been it so far for the Texans this season. I think the Steelers are just going to find ways to capitalize on that. If the Steelers can get up a little bit, throughout the game and then put pressure on Stroud and make him throw those 40-plus balls a game. If you remember, in our 37-17 win versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Houston Texans, Stroud only threw like 32 times, and the weeks prior when we were getting stomped on, he was throwing like 45-plus times. So the recipe for the Texans, they don't want Stroud throwing too much. Obviously, he's a talented guy, but no quarterback should just be slinging it every single time. You kind of got to set up the play action. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that against a guy like TJ Watt, just going to be in your face the entire time. Still got like Alex Highsmith, Minka, who, come in on the blitz every once in a while. So I do think that the Steelers' defense is going to get to Stroud at least a couple times, but it's crazy. On FanDuel, their line is only at -2.5. The Steelers over Houston. Houston is home for this game, but I think that the books might be trying to give a little too much respect, get a little too cute with this Texans team. I don't know if we're there yet, and I think the Steelers' defense could have a pretty good shot to mess us up. Lastly, it's the last defense I want to talk about. They've honestly been like the most dominant defense in my opinion, just off the eye test. Browns defense currently ranked as defense and special teams number 4 in fantasy football, they're averaging 10.7 fantasy points per game, so it's going to be pretty good for your defense. Last week, they had 5 sacks against Ryan Tannehill, and the Titans smacked them in a 27-3 win. If you remember, they literally held Joe Burrow to 3 points as well. Currently, right now, they only have allowed 23 total points, 20 total points throughout the entire season. 3 to Cincinnati, 14 to Pittsburgh, and then 3 to Tennessee Titans. Obviously not the greatest offenses except for Cincinnati supposedly, and they really shut them down. I like their whole defensive squad. I want to pull up their personnel just so you guys can kind of hear who is on their team. Obviously guys like Myles Garrett, Grant Delpit, who's a Pro Bowl type safety, who's really good. And only letting up 20 points is absolutely crazy throughout this season. They also got guys like Zadarius Smith, former Packer, who was really good, Dalvin Tomlinson, an elite defensive tackle. Who else? Yeah, Grant Delpit, Juan Thornhill, who was a former Chief, made a lot of plays for them. Denzel Ward is a top corner. Who else? Greg Newsome is a pretty good corner as well. They just got like guys who are ready to play, and I want to know who their coordinator is. I feel like they have a pretty good defensive coordinator. I think this defense has potential to be one of the best in the league. They got Jim Schwartz, former Lions legend, as their defensive coordinator. I just think it's a good recipe for football when you have really good players playing on that side of the ball. It just makes a lot of sense. But they're going to be going up against Lamar and that Baltimore squad. But the Baltimore squad is very injury prone and just injured in general. We don't know really where Odell Beckham's at right now. Thought he was going to find a way to make an impact for that team. That really hasn't happened yet. So that's definitely interesting. Bateman also injured. Don't know if he was in practice this week. They lost Dobbins already, so they pretty much got second strings at every single spot on their offense, and I think the Browns defense is just going to pin their ears back and go find Lamar. We don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Lamar has game-breaking potential, always has potential to just win the game by himself, and also think that Lamar Jackson is the best closer in football. I think if he has the ball at the end of the game, he just wins it most of the time. But if you make Lamar pass, make him try to beat you from the pocket, and then you send a guy like Myles Garrett in there, I don't know how they're going to hold up. And also the Ravens' offensive line is nothing to, tip your hat at. They're not amazing. But, guys, those are really the defenses and the tight ends I wanted to talk about. I see some of y'all listening. But make sure you come back, tune in Monday, 7 p.m. That's when I go on my live show. And, come watch if you guys are looking for some more fantasy football coverage. I'm in the lab all day cooking stuff up for y'all. But until next time, I'll see y'all later. Peace.